Hi, this is David at MSI IT. Now tonight we're going to be comparing two of the best 17-inch gaming laptops on the market as of 2022. We're going to be looking at the build quality, the features, the performance, the upgradability and much more, so stick around to find out which of these machines is the best machine for you. So before we start this comparison, I do want to state that I love both these machines and I want to make this review as unbiased as possible. So in order to do that, I've tried to get both these machines as close in spec as possible. Now both of these came in at just under £2,300 thanks to some great coupons on the actual Dell and a sale on a UK retailer. And for that, we're getting the 12th generation 12700H on both of these laptops. They've both got the NVIDIA RTX 3070 Ti. Now the Alienware X17 is the 4K screen, which is a 120Hz 4K display. And the G76 has got the 240Hz QHD display. Now the 4K display is an expensive option on the X17 R2, but the G76 has more RAM at 32GB as opposed to 16 and slightly more of the Gen 4 SSD storage space at 1TB as opposed to 512. So this is as close as I could get these two. So then let's get started, and the first thing I want to do is just talk about the actual weight and the size of these laptops. Now they're both quite large 17-inch gaming laptops as of 2022. The G76 is slightly thicker than the X17, but the X17 is slightly deeper thanks to these very large exhaust grills that the X17 has. And when it comes to weight with these machines, the G76 is actually the lighter of the two, coming in at 2.99 kilograms, and the X17 R2 comes in at 3.09 kilograms, so only marginally heavier than the G76. And if I'm honest, if I was picking these both up and I didn't have the scales, I wouldn't notice any difference in weight between these two. Now looking at the build and the materials of these laptops, I've got to give the nod here to the Alienware X17, as although these are both solid machines with no creak, the Alienware X17 is slightly more premium feeling with more premium materials. It's got a sturdier hinge and there's a lot less plastics in this build than there is on the G76. Now moving on to the port selections on both of these laptops, both of these have a great range of ports being 17-inch gaming laptops, but I do prefer the actual layout on the G76. I like the fact on the G76 we've got ports that are commonly used on the side and all your other ports on the rear of the laptop, whereas the Alienware X17 R2 has all of its ports on the rear of the laptop. Now yes, that does make the laptop look clean when it's on your desk and all the ports are out the back, but if you're plugging peripherals in and out of the machine, it is quite a pain having to either look around the side or feel around to plug in a mouse or a hard drive into this machine. Now what gaming laptop would be complete without RGB? Now the G76 has the beautiful Aura Glow, subtly glowing away on the front of the actual laptop, and I do absolutely love this bar. The Alienware on the other hand has the Tron ring at the rear of the laptop. Now this is the iconic Alienware Epic design with mini LED Tron ring that's incredibly vibrant and very iconic of Alienware, and I do love the look of both of these RGBs in their own way. But the Alienware also gets an RGB alien head on the back of the actual lids. An alien head power button is also lit on the deck of the keyboard. Now whilst we're talking about the RGB, let's also talk about the RGB keyboards. And both of these have per key RGB lighting. And both of these keyboards have their positives and negatives, so let's break it down. Now the G76 has a full-size keyboard with a number pad, which I know a lot of people will like. And it also has per key RGB with the secondary functions are also backlit. But the only disadvantage of this keyboard is the RGB doesn't get very bright, and I'm personally not a big fan of the font. Some people may like it, but I prefer a much cleaner font like we've got on the X17. Now the X17 keyboard obviously doesn't have that number pad and is therefore more centered. Now I know there's going to be camps of people on both sides of the fence here. Some people always want a number pad on the machine and some people like the centered keyboards that you get without a number pad. Personally, I don't mind either, but it's nice here that we've got an option depending on what you like. Now the RGB lighting on the X17 is much brighter than the MSI, which is a positive, but unfortunately with the X17 it does not light the secondary functions on these keys. And I think that's a real shame on such a premium laptop, and Alienware did used to do this. I don't understand why they've taken away that functionality. But with regards to the typing experience, I've got to hand the win to the actual X17 here. Not only do we have the option of the amazing Cherry MX mechanical keyboard, which is a brilliant typing experience and very similar to a Cherry MX Blue Switch, but even the standard keyboard is my favourite typing experience of any of the gaming laptops out there, and the keyboard on this machine is an absolute joy to type on, so if I did have to type any document, I would gravitate towards this machine. And that's not to say that the keyboard is bad. On the G76, it's still got a solid keyboard, but this is the Premier League of keyboards. Now with regards to the touchpads, both these touchpads work well and the gestures work as expected, but the X17 gets the slight win here because it does feel very slightly more premium and solid than the trackpad on the GE76. But then moving up to the speakers, I'm afraid this is an easy win to the G76. It has fantastic sounding speakers for a gaming laptop, and for some reason, Dell have managed to actually decrease the actual sound quality on the speakers on this X17 R2 as opposed to the R1 from last year. Here is what both these speakers sound like. Okay, speaker test at 80% volume. We're going to start with the Alienware X17. Now GE76. Hopefully that's come along through the mic, but the G76 is much fuller and much nicer sounding, and the X17 has got a kind of it's like the speakers are blowing out a little bit. Some strange sounds with them. Okay, now so moving up to the screens. On the X17 R2, we've got the 4K 120Hz panel. This is quite an expensive upgrade on the Alienware machines, but it's definitely worth it if you want an Alienware. On the MSI G76, we've got the 240Hz QHD panel, and in my opinion, as I've said earlier, this is the sweet spot for a gaming laptop in 2022. So when I actually came to review these panels, I thought this was going to be an easy win for the G76, but I've been so incredibly impressed by this 4K panel in the X17R2 with not only the performance of the panel, the actual colour accuracy and the brightness, but also how well it scales down from 4K to other resolutions, that I'm actually got to give the win here to the X17R2. And if you missed my video on the actual X17R2 4K panel, I'm going to pop a little card above so you can click it and find out all about it. But this is, in my opinion, an amazing panel for work and play, because you can leave it at 4K whilst you're working, but drop it down to the QHD like on the actual G76 for when you want to do some of the AAA gaming that won't work well at 4K. Now above the screens, both these machines have webcams and microphones that look and sound like this. This is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the Alienware X17 R2. And this is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the new 2022 GE76 Raider. And the X17 R2 also gets Windows Hello facial recognition, which logs you in incredibly quickly and accurately, and it's by far my favourite way of logging into any laptop. And sadly, the G76 doesn't have any Windows Hello facial or fingerprint readers, and on a laptop of this price range, I think this is a real miss by MSI, because most customers paying this much money would like that kind of experience. Okay, let's power these machines down, crack them open and look at the internals. So the X17R2 has a 4-fan and a vapor chamber cooling solution against the MSI's much more traditional heat pipe and 2-fan cooling solution. Now we're going to be doing the performance test shortly, but comment down below and let us know which one you think is actually going to perform better on the CPU and the GPUs of these machines. Now both these machines have 2 Gen 4 M.2 slots for your storage, and they've both got 2 removable DDR5 RAM slots, so they can both be upgraded. Now the G76 has got a socketed Wi-Fi, whereas the X17R2 has a soldered Wi-Fi, so I've got to give the slight edge for the G76 with regards to the upgradability. And also with the X17R2, the motherboard is inverted, so if you want to repaste or do any maintenance on the X17R2, you will have to remove the entire motherboard to get to that vapor chamber, making it much easier to work on the G76 for future maintenance. So with regards to all upgradability and maintenance, it's quite an easy win here for the G76. Right, so now let's get to my favourite part, the performance. So comparing the performance of the 12700H in both of these machines, and the X17 comes out ahead. We use Cinebench R23, which is a very demanding test and lasts for 10 minutes, so highlights throttling. Throughout the entirety of that test, the Alienware X17 managed to maintain between 100 and 110 watts through the test, and the G76 managed to hold between 70 and 80 watts. So this is why the X17 is performing better on that CPU, having that extra 20 watt power budget. In the Geekbench 5 CPU test, the G76 came out slightly ahead of the X17, but that's due to the fact that the G76 has 32GB of RAM and Geekbench does heavily rely on the memory as well as the CPU. Moving on to the GPU test, and both of these laptops have a 150-watt NVIDIA RTX 3070 Ti, but the GE76 gets the advantage of having a mux switch. Unfortunately, the 4K Alienware X17 R2 does not get a mux. All the other versions of the X17 get a mux switch, except for this one. Hopefully Dell may add this later in a BIOS like they did last year. And the upshot of this is the GPU performance on the GE76 is very slightly better than the X17. So this is real swings and roundabouts. CPU performance, X17, GPU performance, G76. Moving on to the fan noise, and both these machines are very pleasant to use for long-term gaming. The fans stay at a constant speed on both these machines and don't pulsate up and down, which is very nice. When gaming on the balance modes on both these machines, the Alienware is 48 decibels, whereas the G76 is 47 decibels, but it's actually hard to tell that 1 decibel difference when you're gaming. And when we bump the performance up to the extreme performance modes on these laptops, the Alienware comes in at 52 decibels and the G76 comes in at 51 decibels. And unless I had them side by side, I wouldn't have really noticed much difference in the actual noise of these laptops. They were both very usable. With regards to the external temperatures, both these machines handle themselves really well, with the palm rest and the deck staying cool even through long-term gaming sessions. Thanks to the 4 fans and the vapor chamber on the X17, it did remain slightly cooler than the G76 on the palm rest. Now, in order to change the actual profiles and RGB lighting, you're going to need proprietary software. Now, the Alienware has the command center and the actual G76 has the MSI center. Now, the advantage of the Alienware is that the Alienware command center has everything under one piece of software. So you can control the profiles, the lighting, audio, everything from that one piece of software. And that's where the good news ends, because despite the fact that Alienware have been running the software for years, it's had very little development time and is very clunky and unintuitive. I have moaned a lot about it in the past. I really hope that someday Dell update their software. With regards to the G76, we have the MSI Center for all your profiles and a lot of your gaming keys and other bits and pieces. But the lighting is actually handled by the SteelSeries software because they've partnered with SteelSeries for this keyboard and the lighting strip. You have to have 2 pieces of software, but both of them are very good, and I do prefer the software on the G76 than the Alienware Command Center. Now, with regards to the battery, MSI put in a 99.9 watt-hour battery, which is the largest battery you can put in a laptop, whereas the Alienware gets an 87 watt-hour battery. But surprisingly, with the smaller battery and the 4K display, I managed to get 5 hours battery life out of the X17 as opposed to 4 hours and 45 minutes on the G76. And that's running our usual test of streaming YouTube video over Wi-Fi at 200 nits of brightness. Neither of these are stellar results, but unfortunately this seems to be what it's like with 12th gen gaming laptops. But despite the battery life not being great on these 12th gen laptops, performance on battery between these two is very similar and is excellent. They feel very, very snappy on battery. So with these 12th gen laptops not having the greatest battery life, you're going to be needing to take your PSU with you. So here we have the PSU from both the Alienware and the MSI, and you see quite a difference in size and weight between these two. Alienware has really made an effort this year to create a new compact and light charger for these X17 range of laptops. And it really does make a difference when you're like chucking this in your bag. It's got a nice slim lead, it's light and it's small, as opposed to MSI's very old-fashioned, chunky power brick. Somewhere I think MSI could put a bit of R&D to improve that. And not only has the X17 got the better power supply, but the laptop itself also has power delivery, meaning that you can charge this laptop via a USB-C, power supply, dock or monitor. This gives you the advantage of being able to take the laptop out without a PSU and use a monitor or someone else's USB-C charger to get light work done on the go. So one last point before we move through to the conclusion, and that is the warranty. And I think if you're spending this much money on a gaming laptop, the warranty is something that you should seriously look into. And this is an area where Dell actually excels with their Alienware laptops. They provide on-site warranty. So if you get an issue, if the laptop breaks, or there's any problem, they will send an engineer out to your home or office and fix it for you. It's usually done within a couple of days. With the MSI, unfortunately, it's a back-to-base warranty, so you are sending it back to MSI to be repaired and then send it back to you, so it means it will be away from you for quite some time. Now, I've had some horror stories with both companies with regards to customer services or warranties, but in my experience, and I've used Dell for a lot of years, I've never had an issue with their on-site warranty. It's always been great. So on to the conclusion, and what can I say about these are two very solid, great gaming laptops for 2022. I'd be hard-pressed to choose one over the other. And one of the biggest factors I would say is going to be the price, as that does vary from region to region. But in my case, in the UK, having bought these for both the same price at £2,300, I think it's an easy choice to go for the Alienware X17, as in my opinion it's a better all-round package. You've got that amazing 4K screen with Windows Hello facial recognition, you've got a much more portable power supply, power delivery for extra charging, and that great on-site warranty, making this a really solid package. But if all you're interested in gaming or GPU performance, then you may want to consider that G76 because the GPU does perform slightly better in this laptop than the X17. So as always, I'd love to know your opinion of these two laptops. Which would you choose? Pop your comments down below and I will respond to you. And as usual, thank you for watching.